in the economy. They're also jobs that are amongst the most flexible in the economy. So, there were the highest rates of remote working in the industry pre-pandemic, and as everyone has become more flexible, the tech sector has kind of continued to move to the frontier. So, and as I said before, I think these are jobs working in tech are often the jobs that let you do some really meaningful work, like very purpose-driven work. You're often doing it with great teams and with great people in a way that isn't necessarily possible in every job. So I think this is an incredible opportunity, but something I am very passionate about at the Tech Council is that not enough women, I think, frankly, know about this opportunity or encouraged to take it. So we know only 1 in 4 women working in the tech sector, 1 in 4 people working in the tech sector today in Australia are female, right? And that representation tends to be higher in non-technical jobs, and it's sort of lower in some of those more techie areas. And I just think that this is kind of a travesty for our country. It's not a trend that we see around the world. There's nothing sort of gender specific that says women can or can't work in tech. And I frankly think that, women not going into fast growing industries and into careers actually holds back women's progress, more broadly, and it kind of locks them out of economic opportunity sometimes, not simply really great jobs. So I am personally very passionate as a leader in this sector about shouting from the rooftops about the opportunities for women to work in the sector. And it's why I am so excited to have the incredible panel that we do here today to talk to you about their personal experience and hopefully to give you some more concrete ideas about a career you might want to have in the sector itself. And let me also give a big shout out to Finder for organising the session today. Finder, I think, is a really wonderful example of the tech sector in Australia. They're global fintech. They exist to help people make better financial decisions. They have over 2 million users from Australia, and they now are in multiple countries around the world and have 600 staff around the world. So I think that is a story that Australia can be proud of. But I think Finder's product range is also a great example of how working in tech can help you do good for the world, because I think that there's a lot of complexity often in financial decisions and choosing financial products, and a service that sort of helps people make better decisions about navigating that complexity can do a lot of good in people's lives. So that's my that is my stump speech for you. But I want to now turn to our panelists, and what we're going to invite them to do today is to talk to you firstly about their experiences working in tech careers, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. So if anyone is listening along and your curiosity is piqued by something you hear, pop a question in the Q&A function of the chat, and then we'll call it out and we'll ask that question on your behalf to the speakers. So on that note, I want to invite our first speaker, Rima, who's the lead data scientist at Finder, to talk to us about her career and experience working in the sector.
Thank you, Kate, and thanks everyone for joining and listening to us today. We're very excited. I am Rima, and I lead a team of data scientists and machine learning engineers at Finder. My career has predominantly been in academia. I did my undergrad in computer science, information systems, and then moved on to do a PhD in bioinformatics and computer-aided drug design, which was ironically in figuring out a drug for SARS coronavirus, but 15 years ago, believe it or not. And I think that kind of education enables me to apply machine learning in a wide variety of disciplines, starting from medical research to a sports betting company, and then now in Finder in finance. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about my different experiences throughout probably the past 20 years.
That sounds great. And let me just unpack this a little bit more, Rima. Firstly, can you explain to the group, what does a data scientist do?
Yes, it's a very interesting term, because over the past few years, it has evolved. When I started, basically anyone who did, statistics, application of statistics in other fields, who knew how to code and had a bit of knowledge of maths and stats would technically be called a data scientist. So you were not a specialist in one specific thing, but it's like an interdisciplinary field. So you could take things from various areas and then be able to apply it in a more practical way. Now I think data scientist is, as it says, you are able to work with large amounts of data. You have the capability of tackling that technically, as well as being able to interpret, in terms of what is this data telling me. It's a weird mixture between an analyst and a scientist, because the scientist kind of end of it delves a little bit deeper into beyond just descriptive statistics to more predictive world. So that's where the machine learning bit comes in. Or if you're trying to figure out complex patterns in your data, or you're trying to see how can I predict learning from the pattern that I've seen historically to say what might be the pattern in the future. And that, has had, people have realized, especially in the financial world, that this has massive implications for them. I think in Wall Street, they have been using statisticians who essentially were probably data scientists, just called differently for ages. So data science as it stands today is you are part engineer, part scientist, part with the ability to interpret and communicate that, not only to your target audience, but to the stakeholders. I think that all encompasses what makes a good data scientist.
That's really helpful. And, I think there's sometimes a perception that, data scientist is just for geeks, or it's a super technical role. But, you were saying to me earlier, and I've heard this from other leaders in the field, there's a whole set of other skills, right? Because you're solving a problem you haven't done before. You have to work as a team to solve it. Often you need some domain expertise because you've got to choose the right questions and to ask. So, how do people avoid putting themselves in a box and saying, oh, I'm not a deep coder, or, I haven't done a 3 or 4 year sort of computer science course? How do they think about whether they could be a sort of hidden rock star data scientist?
Yeah, very good question. I actually have a real life experience of how. So I have a 5-year-old daughter, and a couple of years ago when she was in preschool, they used to have some activities, and one of them was very simple for preschoolers to do some coding with colors, etc. And I was quite excited to see that, and I wrote to her preschool teacher saying, hey, this is very exciting because I'm a coder myself. And upon talking to her more, she was very interested, and she asked me a lot of questions. Oh, how long have you been doing this? What do you do? Which kind of led her to leave her job as a preschool teacher and take up a course in general assembly in coding. And she is and off she went. So right now she's completed the course, she's working. So I think I'm glad you asked this, because it is that feeling of like intimidation that, oh my God, but when you talk to somebody who's in that field, you realize it's not that hard. To be honest, I think I took up computer science and coding because I found every other science subject to be a lot harder, because I had to memorize a lot of complicated words and concepts and chemical equations. Whereas in computer science or in coding, I thought I just need logic. And it's probably one of those fields where you don't need a 4-year or a 10-year formal education, because all you need is, curiosity, tenacity, and logic. And then off you go. In terms of encouraging people who are considering, but are intimidated, I would definitely say give it a shot. It's like a puzzle. It's like solving a puzzle. And if you have that kind of, interest, that you are always up for a challenge, you want to, deal with new things, solve new problems. Once you have that fundamental set of coding skill, I think you'll be good to go. You don't have to, learn new things every day in terms of, you have to keep up with the field. But at the same time, once you have that fundamental knowledge, you said.
I think that's great. So any Wordle fans out there, maybe you have secretly been training to become a data scientist. And Rima, just a final question. You've had obviously a fascinating career. You know, it's allowed you to work in everything from medical research to Finder and financial products and sports betting. But what do you think is the most interesting problem that you've been able to solve in your career and been able to work on? And what are you most proud of?
Oh boy. I think my first probably project in machine learning, which was to use information of people's protein and gene levels from their blood samples and being able to figure out their probability of being diabetic in the future. So looking at that and that work, yeah, I'm quite proud of that. So that was one of the pieces. The second one, I think Finder provides a lot of potential to do, you know, very rewarding work because we're actually trying to, you know, with these predictions, trying to help the users save their money, budget properly, which are all kind of predictions in a way. So it is quite rewarding as well.
I think they sound like pretty incredible problems to be solving. And I've just got a couple of great questions coming in from the audience. I'm going to opportunistically throw them your way as well, Rima. What do you think are some of the ways we can encourage our kids early on, especially girls, to consider careers in tech?
Yeah, wonderful question. I'm quite passionate about this topic because I have a daughter myself. And one of the things that we try to do is, you know, the games that you buy when they are little, you know, we try to encourage more towards STEM related games where they can, you know, build something and, you know, introduce the joys of them trying to figure it out themselves when they're a little bit older, maybe 5, 6, just starting school. Send them to code camps. There are, you know, so many of those now that you like during school holidays. That'll get them interested. And in general, you know, in like to provide an environment where you solve puzzles. You know, get them interested in those kind of things, and introducing them or surrounding them to, you know, role models. Show them that this is possible. You know, if you know someone or reach out to people, make friends with, you know, other women who are in coding, who are in engineering, and then they see that this is possible and it's not like a distant dream.
I think that's great advice. And I might move now to Madhu and get you to talk to us about your experience as in engineering roles in the tech sector. And then I might get Lucy as well to tell us about her experience as a graduate. And then I'll come back to some of these questions from the Q&A because they're about how people should break into the industry and what courses to study. But I think it might help us to get a bit of a spread of stories about some of the different roles, and then we'll come back and answer it. So Madhu.
Hello, everyone. My name is Madhu. I am an engineering lead at Finder. I lead a team of 4 engineers. So I'm going to start my introduction with a story because it will give the perspective how I became an engineer. So I didn't see computer till I was 18. And I was born and brought up at a place where no women had been to college or uni. So it was like very different. And I was pretty good in mathematics, and my father believed that boys and girls deserve equal opportunities. So me and my brothers, we got equal punishments and opportunities both. In high school and intermediate, which is 12th standard in India, there were 40 boys in my class and we were only 2 girls. But teachers were very supportive and they encouraged us. They believed that I can do something good in my career. So I did get into uni, and as expected, in my first year of college, I failed in computers. And then I used my holidays, it was 2 or 3 months, I'm not sure, to study computers and learn C language, which was very popular at that time. So I'm talking about 20 years ago. And after 3 months, when all the students came back, I was almost equal to them who were studying or who knew computers. And In fact, it was like some of the students were feeling a bit annoyed because 2 months ago, I didn't know anything. I was like, oh, I don't know how to deal with it. And now I was telling them that how they can come out of their problems. So this whole, and yes, I did pass my exam easily. So this whole experience was something which made me realize that I can do it in computers. It's doable. And I just need to put some extra efforts. And I don't mind extra efforts because it will make my life better. So when I think of like if girls or women, they want to go in this field, they need to give it a try before thinking, oh, other people have been in computers because of young age. It doesn't mean that you cannot give it a try. We don't know our abilities unless we try something, we explore it. So I have almost same career of the people who were maybe exploring computer from young age, and I saw it at the age of 18. So, and the other thing which I feel is that I understand, like there were some points which I have noticed that software engineers, they are not fun, but I can tell from my experience that I had lots of fun at workplace, lots of laughter and fantastic moments. And second thing, which is like somewhere people believe that engineers are like function in isolation, like in movies it is shown there's one engineer and he's cracking down everything, shutting down the system. But in 99.9 engineers, we work in a team. We have a team of senior engineer, we have junior engineer, we have designer, we have product owner, we have manager who will lead and support. So when someone joins, there is a whole group of support. And usually first job is not about how much you already know. It's about how much passion you have to learn the things, how much passion you have to grow. So this is something which I feel is, it's kind of taking back a step and seeing that there's a support system. And in coding, the best part is you don't release code and it's going to be life-threatening because we can revert back, or there are some people who can review your code, or at the worst case, if it is very complicated, there will be some senior to support you. So it's not something like life-changing if you make a mistake. There's a chance. And you can Google almost everything and learn the things. And the last point, which I see the judgment, is that it's male dominating, as you were mentioning. So in India, most of my jobs, like in teams, they were over 30% women. In fact, in my last job, in that company, there were over 50% girls. They were mostly young, which means I'm assuming that more girls are going into engineering in India. And then I was checking this Engineers Australia website also, in which it says 35% women are engineers in Europe, over 50% in Iran, and in Australia we have only 12%. So which is lacking, like, and I feel that in our daily life, we are using so much of technology. We interact in some way, like we use social media to wish our friends. We use online shopping. We use Finder for comparison. So all these technologies is, if there's a low percentage of women while developing these life-changing products, it's like not having that 360 vision. And then we cannot develop the best products. So it's like, we need input and diversity at our workplace so that the products which are developed, they are good for both the genders in future. So I would just request girls and women here that they should give it a try. They should jump in and explore. There's lots of opportunities, and there are many people who are there to support. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that is such an inspiring story. I think, you know, to hear your background, your own experience, persisting to learn and having the resilience to not be, you know, put off by having to catch up with the rest of your class, but also I think your encouragement for the rest of the group here is really wonderful. Can I just pick up on a couple of themes that you're talking about there? You know, one is this, you were talking about how much fun it is to be in a team, and can you maybe talk the group through what are some of the roles in the team, and what's an example of a typical day and the way that you guys might interact?
Okay, so typical day for lead, I would say, is first checking all the meetings. Because as a lead, we have many of the meetings. And for other teams, so in team, we have 3 engineers who do coding. Then there's a tester, the part which is developed that need to be tested. Then we have support of designers. We have 2 designers who propose the design to us. And then we have product owner who is responsible what kind of things in which priority order they need to be released. So the product owner will be tackling with the founders and other people to collect the requirements. So in typical day, this we will, like the developers, they will have few meetings. One is the daily stand-up where we talk about what each one is doing, and then if there is any blocker, if they need support from anyone or any other team. And it's more like seeing the team, how they are doing also. It's not only about work, it's about interacting and asking that they are okay. So, and rest of the time, if there is any interaction required, we do. But in my team, we have every day, Friday, random chat. So there we come and talk about any topic we want. Because when we are working with other human beings, it's important to connect on different level, and that brings that trust. It's easy when I talk about my pet with you, that you will come to me, ask about code or problems. If I just talk about code, it makes it mundane. So
that's really helpful.
Yeah,
I think that really brings it to life. And you know, it's interesting there because you're talking about your team structure, and you'd say, you know, maybe 50% of your roles, you might have the developers or the coders and the testers. They might be, you know, more technical roles, but then you've got designers and the product owner as well. So it's not the case in a, you know, in an engineering team. It's a case in an engineering team. Is that fair to say that you need people with different skills and different strengths, and that's actually what makes the team perform best?
Yes, I mean, even in engineers also, like there is a different skill. One person might be good in particular language. So for example, we use TypeScript, React, WordPress. Somebody might have expertise in WordPress. The other person might have in React. So, or somebody might have expertise in database. So everybody, it's like the diversity which makes it. I cannot do the testing. The tester knows his job. And the same thing is for designer. They know their job. They do the research. They check, okay, what kind of website user would like to use. So they go out and they do user experiments where they do user interviews and check it. That's their job. So it's like everybody, through the diversity only we can create a website or a product which is useful, because there are so many eyes, there is so many views, and that's where we get this 360 degree that, okay, everybody sees the product and have a different concern or question.
And just sort of building on that, we had a great question come in from the audience. They've said, you know, what are some of the most interesting problems that you've solved as a team that might have been unexpected because of this open forum that you're running on Fridays?
Sorry, I didn't get it. What was that?
Oh, and so one of the people listening loved your idea about the Friday meeting you have with this open forum, but they said, what's an example of the kind of problem that might come up in that team meeting that you use it to solve?
So the random chat is not about solving the problem. That is particular to know each other. So it is about like we talk about maybe childhood We might talk about what kind of series somebody like, or what kind of food person will like, or what kind of activity they do on weekend. So that random chat is not about technical discussion. For technical discussions, we have different kind of meetings, which is done again monthly basis, where somebody will give the presentation on WordPress because other people don't know it, or somebody has learned about better time management and they present it. So, random chat is more likely because we are working from home, and many times we are not talking on off topics. So that is just to kind of connect. Yeah.
And I think, that's just lovely to know as well, right? That there's a place to get to know your colleagues as being part of a team. And one final question, you touched on this theme earlier, which is about how you approach failure and whether you see it as, almost like a black mark and something to be scared of versus seeing it as just a learning experience. Because, one thing I hear a lot in my role is that sometimes women are more scared of failing, and like it can be something that holds them back in mass if it just takes a lot of practice, and women almost feel like they can't get the answer wrong, and that can there's more sort of social conditioning against that. And I'm curious, hearing you speak, you've obviously had to risk failure so many times and kind of push through it, even kind of failing an early exam. Like, what is your mentality to failure, and what advice would you give for some of the women listening?
I think we women are very tend to be perfect, and that's why we are afraid of failure. But so here, that's what I do, and that's what I share with my team, that being failed means we have tried, and now we know what we can do better. So it's like, if we are afraid of failure, we are missing lots of opportunities. If I don't give it a try, how do I know, like out of 10, how much good I am? I might think, oh, I cannot do it, but I didn't give it a try. So failure is kind of knowing where I need to improve, how much I need to improve, and what is my strength. But it is more like accepting that I will be failed. And that's the way of growing, and accepting that I'm imperfect, and sometimes I will make silly mistakes, and sometimes I will make super intelligent decisions, but that's how being human is. So at one side, when I make silly mistakes, I remind myself, but I did something good also. So it's like being easy with my failure, and not kind of beating myself so much that I made this mistake, kind of. So it's being kind to yourself, I would say, and be ready to continuously making mistakes.
I think that is very wise advice. And I think we can all take a note to be kind to ourselves and be easy with ourselves, both when we fail and when we learn. I agree with the comment that you are very inspiring. I might turn to Lucy now, because I'm noticing I think you guys are piquing the interest of everyone listening, and I'm starting to get questions about, so what should I study? How do I get into these jobs? And, I haven't started with coding before. And I just want to throw to you, Lucy, because I think that your story will help answer just some of the questions we're coming through, and then we can maybe pick up on some of the more specific questions across the panel after that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. So I can see a lot of the questions coming through about people wanting to start coding a bit later in life, and I can really empathize with that, because I came to coding later, and I actually started. When I finished school, I wanted to be an actor and writer and get into comedy and things like that, which I did do for several years. But I ended up working after I went to film school, and after that I ended up working in events just to get by, and I worked in conference management, but what I ended up doing was working with registration and like building building online forms and working a lot with databases, and I actually really enjoyed it. And so I ended up going, I liked web building, but I wasn't a software engineer by any means. I was using an existing platform to build things. So I decided to do a degree based on that at UTS, and then I ended up working as a consultant in event management for a few years. And then, so when COVID happened, I decided to, because a lot of the events got cancelled or delayed, I thought, now is really probably an opportunistic time to investigate software engineering a bit further, because I'd seen quite a bit of code over the years. I'd tried to adjust JavaScript without not really knowing what any of it does. But I thought, I always found it really fun. And I actually spent a weekend in 2020, when not a lot was going on. I started doing coding on a Friday night. And then, on Sunday, I was still coding, fun weekend, but actually I was like, this is really good. So I actually went and spoke to a friend who did a UX UI coding boot camp at General Assembly, and always had spoken about it. And she said, do it, like in terms of the software engineering immersive course that they do there, which is a boot camp. And she was so supportive and really made me feel like this is something I could do, because I was, one of the things they talk about throughout the course is you will feel things, something called Imposter Syndrome, which is very much like, can I become a software engineer? And, is this something I can do? And they really work with you through that. And so, I did the General Assembly bootcamp. I loved it. It was coding, again, COVID, so had no FOMO because no one else was doing much. But, you do need to commit, a lot of time. I had like 3 months of coding 9 to 5 and then into the evening with the really hard homework that they give you. But I found it deeply satisfying and just really enjoyable. So that was kind of my way into getting work here at Finder, which I've just loved. So that's kind of where I am today.
I think that is also a really inspiring story. And I might turn to you now to just answer a few of the questions we're getting to from the audience, because I think your experience is pretty apt to that. So one of them was, is it too late? So someone's saying, I'm in my early 40s. I haven't done coding before, although they had an interest in it. Like, is it ever too late to start a new career or to train?
No, I don't think it is. And I can attest to that because, it's, contrary to popular belief, I'm not in my early 20s, but it is definitely something that you can do, and it's I think that it's I mean, coding is, I think, if anyone, like I said, give it a go, like do that, take that first step, which is what I did on that weekend, is really just had a go, found how much I enjoyed it. And just I thought, well, this is really fun. And also, I mean, I wasn't new to websites or anything like that. I'd worked with WordPress for years and, had built several websites for family and friends and, clients. And but the actual idea of coding, I hadn't really done a great deal of before. But I think that if you give it a go, there is plenty, saying that as well, the software I worked on was very specific to the event industry. So it was really hard to find information. But the beauty of software engineering is there's a lot of information online, and it's not, it's not like you're, reinventing the wheel. There's someone has attempted what you're probably trying to do, and you will find answers in some respect. And also it's a really generous community with information. People are very forthcoming online with ways to, you will very quickly discover Stack Overflow and see how generous people are with their answers and information. It's great. It's very welcoming.
I think that's really inspirational here, and we certainly feel that it's a real sense of community in the sector. I love this question. Someone has asked, did your interest in acting or comedy help you with coding or in software engineering? Is there any kind of overlap between those passions?
I don't know. I'm still looking for the overlap. I don't know. I'll find it one day. There's comedy to be found in coding. There is definitely. I do think there's a lot. I actually think there's a lot of comedy, and like if you follow JavaScript on LinkedIn, I find their memes really funny. I think there's a crossover.
Is there something, would you say I guess one thing about acting and comedy as well, though, particularly say improv, is you kind of have to be comfortable with uncertainty. And
absolutely.
Like, do you think that's a useful characteristic as well?
Yeah, I think that I think that for me, I can only speak to my own experience. Like, I'm pretty good at, taking, like, I think that I'm very interested in the problem solving of coding, and I get very excited about getting it right. I mean, I find it deeply satisfying when your code works. And I don't know if that's an acting thing, but it's a me thing, or I think it's just I think I like, I kind of liken it to, starting opening a brand new puzzle and that's the feeling that I get when I get a new ticket and start to work on something and start to learn something new. I just, I find it really fun, and I like the idea of watching something work. Yeah.
I think that is that can be a very satisfying feeling, and nice to see it resolved. And I want to sort of throw some questions now to the full panel, just because I think there's some coming through where your different experiences and perspectives might be really helpful for the group. So one set of questions we're getting through is around what type of training should someone do to break into data science or software engineering, and when is the right answer to do a 3 to 6 month bootcamp course, kind of like you did, Lucy, but when is the answer to do a full degree or postgraduate qualifications like you did, Rima? How do people think about choosing the right training for the right job? I'll throw to you, Rima, first, and then just go around each of the panelists and get your perspective.
Sure. I think, you probably don't need more than a master's, to be honest, to get an entry-level job in data science. If you do a survey of the market, if you're hiring, then for my team recently, I think perhaps 90% of the resumes were masters in data science, and they've all had at least one job before, or somewhere just starting out. So that definitely is the trend. I think it depends on what your undergraduate degree might have been. If it's in the sciences, it always helps. It doesn't have to be computer science, but something which is more quantitative is often what we say. So some of the basic, I guess, of statistics and maths, etc. But because data science is a combination and it's more application, in terms of whatever domain you're in, you pick up the domain as you work on the job. A lot of it is picking it up on on the job and with experience, and the more you do it. So the first step is just do it. And as you gain more experience, the syntax of coding and all of that will come with it. Masters, they'll have some projects on the which are like, the capstone projects, which you put on GitHub, which is always a good thing for employers to go see, the quality of your code. If you do it your own projects in your own time, if you're interested, that shows that you're passionate about it beyond just a degree. I think so. There are many ways. There are some that even, have a bachelor's and maybe no other courses apart from a certification from Coursera or Udemy, etc. But if you look at their GitHub repo, and you can tell from that, that they actually know what they're talking about. So I think if you are interested and curious and you do your own stuff and you know the material, then a short course or a master's is perhaps sufficient.
That's really great advice. And Madhu, what's your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, as Rima mentioned, that is required for data science. For software engineer, I did traditional degree, but I would say that if somebody is interested and they have done degree in something else, they can go for short course. And again, there are many languages which a person can learn, whether it's a TypeScript right now, or there's a React, the front-end technologies, or can be in fact AWS technologies, which is getting popular. So the courses can be done in that, and that again is not very hard. It does require 3 to 6 months of complete devotion and determination to get the stuff, but that's possible. Like seeing the opportunities which are various on different labels. So I would say if a person has done degree, that's great. Then they can go with the route of doing their own project before job, or even applying or going for courses. And otherwise, short courses will help a lot and give the direction as well, and will enable whether they have passion or how much they really like it.
I think that's good. And can I just pick up on one more question before I turn to Lucy? Because, you were talking about your team, and there's engineering roles, but then there's also roles like designer or product owner and product manager. And my sort of experience looking at this is, something like a product manager or product owner in particular, there's often not a university degree, for example. You can't go and do a master's in product management. So a lot of people actually learn it on the job, or they take a general assembly course, because the private sector is sort of the only way to train in that. Do you think that the type of job that someone's trying to go into can affect the training options and the pathways?
Personally, I feel that degree is not only about getting the skills for the job. It gives lots of perspective. Like you interact, you learn, you learn to do project with other people. You learn to accommodate with other people. You learn to solve the problems. You learn to solve the problems you don't like also. So I feel degree, I don't know in that way, but for me, I learned more about life and than real subjects in my uni. So I encourage people to go for that experience. And then because it makes you strong in a way that you can handle life much better. When there are problems or there is a project, because in college, in uni, we do projects. We have the presentation, we have all kind of stress, and then conflict. So we learn a lot, and then it becomes easier to do the same thing on the job. But if we don't have that experience, it could be more challenging. That's my personal experience.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good point to recognize the range of things you learn through that training. And Lucy, what is your perspective and your advice, I guess, to the group?
I think that I find that, you do a 3-month course like software, like I did, but it's really just, for me, I see it as just a starting point, like of my education in it. And that's it's really nice working at Finder, because we do have one of the principles here is about mastering your craft, and you're continually learning. And I think that what I'll tend to do is I love any opportunity to pair program with any other engineers, which is a great way of seeing how other engineers will approach an issue, a problem. And I also, will continually, I continually try to keep coding every day, outside of just the tickets that I'm working on, because I'm wanting to get better, and I want to try and learn as much as possible. Like I think I mentioned to you guys before that it's not the sort of job that you have a day of training. It's, it is a continually, it's for people that really want to just continually get better and learn constantly, and keep wanting to, be patient with yourself as well, because you're not going to know it in a day. So I just am continually trying to build on my knowledge every day to get better.
I think that is really good advice also. And just kind of building on all of your answers. So another question that we had coming through from the Q&A is, okay, so someone has decided that they want to go and work in tech, they've got in, done some training. How do they break into that first job? Like, are there, and in particular, if someone's interested in working in Finder, what advice would you give them? Rima, I'll go to you first.
I think perhaps choose the company wisely, so you know that they have the room and the intention to nurture someone junior, because otherwise you might be quite disillusioned. I think internship is perhaps a great way to get your foot in the door, for you to suss out the company, the kind of work, and for them to suss you out. And it's a short-term commitment, which, kind of helps both parties. So internships, I would highly encourage if there are companies that offer to go for those. And beyond that, perhaps, yes, in junior dev roles, often if you are not in a startup, it perhaps, I guess it has its pros and cons, because if you're in a really fresh startup, you're expected to obviously put in, a lot of work and deliver things at a fairly quick rate, which might help you learn more, but depends as in who you are. If you thrive under pressure, and you want to, you're okay with, late nights, and you just want to learn and get there quickly, I think then that should be your route. Versus if you're somebody who needs more nurturing, who needs more mentorship, then I'd probably go to and try a junior dev role or internship in a bigger company. So, everybody's not 100% reliant on, what you have to deliver, but at the same time, you're contributing in some way, you feel rewarded, and you're learning and they're learning. So that would be probably my advice. Yeah.
I think that's great advice, and really important, I think, to think about the company and the type of organization you like working in, not just the role. Madhu, what would your advice be?
I agree with Rima. It's like the choosing company is very important. So in big companies, there are many people, many resources. So there is a room for learning more, and then having that space for not delivering on time. And in small companies, there is a crunch of resources and things need to be delivered fast. So in a small company, if you can handle the pressure, there's lots of growth, quick growth and learning and experience. In big companies, things go slow, but you will have then steady kind of a career over the time. And startup are like big boost. You get they are like energy drinks or injections. You grow very fast in that. Overall, because a person has to do multiple things in their role in a small company. Yeah.
I think that is good advice as well. And Lucy, what would you, given your sort of recent experience of making that transition as well, what advice would you give people about trying to get a foot in the door?
Well, I think that it's important if you're going to do boot camp, I guess, as well. I can speak to that, is that the boot camp I went to was very much runs alongside it. The course includes a job finding sort of section to it, and I actually think that was really crucial, because they make sure that you're not sort of left out in the wilderness when you finish. So you're constantly, whilst you're doing the course, you're building up things like your portfolio, your resume, you're reaching out to people, you're doing all these things whilst it's happening. So you're not just at the end completely like, what do I do now? So you sort of have a plan ready in place while you're doing the course, which was really nice. But yeah, I think that I think what everything Rima and Madhu just said is very correct in terms of how I would approach it. But yeah, I think that for me, and also make sure I guess one of the things that they asked, the boot camp asked when I first sort of inquired about doing this, they said, what sort of company would you like to work for? And the thing that made me really that I immediately said was, I want to be really aligned with their values, in terms of, I wanted to work for a company that, I believed in, as, and that I believed was doing good things. And so that's something that I would recommend as well, because it really helps when you have that sort of aligned with what they're doing. Yeah,
I think that's great advice. And I've thought about this a lot, sort of, I'm in the tech council now, but I was a partner at an analytics firm before I came to this job, and had worked in government and tech policy, a lot of different things. And one sort of thing I found in my own career, and advice I often give to people starting out, was, and this sounds kind of nerdy, but there's a theory in data science around optimal stopping, which is the idea of how many things do you need to try. Like, what happens if you're trying to find this perfect career or this perfect role? Like, how do you know what that is when you haven't tried it, right? And how many things do you need to try before it's likely that you've reached the optimal fit, right? And there's this kind of theory that you probably need to try at least 30% of the options before you get to the point where it's likely that if after that the options aren't getting any better, you kind of reach the right one. And I sort of say to people, like, think about that in terms of your career and your jobs as well, right? How are you going to know what the optimal choice is for you if you just don't get out there and try things? And some of them will work out and you'll love the company or you'll love the role. Sometimes you'll try it and you'll be like, okay, I've learned I loved this part of the role, but actually, maybe there's this other part over there that looks really interesting to me, and that's given you new information to kind of go and try your next thing. Or, sometimes it doesn't work. You apply for jobs and people say, they've gone with someone else, but that's sort of a learning experience for you, well, right? About, it still pique your interest and make you really intent to kind of keep on that path. So I think that, not being afraid to try and just to learn from the things you're trying to help you get a better idea of your career is always also important. And I think, for many of us sitting on this call, like a lot of the jobs we're describing here, I know when I, was going to school and university, almost none of the jobs I've had in my career existed. Like, the organizations didn't exist. Australia's created over 100 companies now in the last couple of decades that have become really successful tech companies valued at over 100 million. 21 of them are valued at over $1 billion now. But 67 of those companies were only created in the last decade. So, it's also okay to kind of keep learning and trying, because that's the great thing about the industry. There's always these new jobs, these new skills, these new companies, these new opportunities. So I think that career path can just evolve really wonderfully as well. And so on that note, we've basically reached the end of our session. So firstly, I want to thank each of our panelists, Rima and Madhu and Lucy, for giving their time today, but I think also really giving us their insights and I think giving us some pretty inspiring thoughts to take away. I want to thank Finder for putting on this event. I think, as I said, I think working in tech is literally one of the best careers you can have, and I just think the more people who know that secret and get on the train, the better. And I'd love for more of those passengers to be women. as well. And finally, for everyone who you know, is listening today and maybe wants to share this with a friend or just go back and check some of the advice, Sophie, who is the maestro behind the scenes who's organised today, has taken a recording of the session. So she'll be making that available to all the panelists, I'm sure, and to the participants, and I'm sure we'll also give you some practical advice for anyone who listening to this wants to take some next steps in terms of training or getting into the sector. So on that note, thank you so much to everyone and have a great day.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.